Y'all, welcome back. 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. And I'm not going to lie to anybody in my audience right now. Tonight's a motherfuck of a night. A motherfuck of a night. And if you don't know what's going on, I'm going to just go ahead and tell you that's better for you. It really is. Because there's no universe where you squabbles. Out of all the people I was hoping to see tonight, I'm not even gonna fucking lie to you, dude. You were the one. You were the person I was hoping to see tonight. Uh, I mean, what is the law? I watched it happen, dude. I was there. I'm so fucking irritated right now. I just want to cancel tonight's stream and go violate Law 18 completely and just isolate myself away from all this shit. This it's not even the night for me to be doing a stream. Not even close. And God, I'm a bit I'm a bit upset. I know I failed Monday to show up when I said I was gonna show up. So I had to show up tonight. Fuck it. Let's do something different. But I mean, how are we gonna do that? Seems a little bit auspicious to me. Suspicious, auspicious. I'm not entirely sure what words mean anymore because everybody keeps redefining them so quickly. Mr. Madness. Look, you dude. Nah, I really need to talk to Squad Bob. No offense. I need to talk to this gentleman right here. Hi, Dizzles. Like, I don't need to talk to you, Maddie, unless you have a problem with me. In which case, you probably would have brought it to me by now. I need to talk to Squab. What kind of bothers me is that they brought on they themselves some vultures and joined hands to try to destroy others as if they're somehow. That's what bothers me, Mr. Squabs. And being somebody who was under every single one of their knives at one point in time, I have a very unique disposition on how that goes, but that's not why I'm here tonight, bruv. That is not why I'm here, brother, and you know that. Add me on Discord, squab. We will talk later tonight. I don't know if we have a shared Discord. I went looking for you earlier. I couldn't find you. I don't even know if you're actually on Discord or not. But if you're not on Discord, add me on X or whatever. Like, find a platform. Find a fucking platform to find me on. We'll talk later. Kitty Ninja, good to see you. Glad you're here. Like, we're gonna talk about this law tonight because this law has got some new substance in my heart mode. So I'm gonna put myself over yonder and I'm just gonna get on with it. Like, let's go. Law 18. Do not build fortresses to protect yourself. Isolation is dangerous. All right. I I tend to agree with this. Like, I'm an extroverted person though. I don't flee I don't flee into myself outside of a few moments when Mousin. Hold my bad. Hey, Mousy, Heidi. I'm not entirely sure what this link is, but Mousy would know. Okay, back to isolation. I don't flee into myself long term. I do retreat to give myself some space from people because sometimes sucking up the influence of other people is actually a really good way to shit on your own fucking soul. Anytime you have a viewpoint that is way too narrow on any one topic, you leave yourself way open to be exploited. So, retreating into yourself generally a bad move play. But let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. Judgment. The world is dangerous, and enemies are everywhere. Everyone has to protect themselves. And I don't mean the strong have to protect themselves. Everyone has to protect themselves. A fortress seems the safest, but isolation exposes you to more dangers than it protects you from. It cuts you off from valuable information. It makes you conspicuous and an easy target. Better to circulate among people, find allies, mingle. You are shielded from your enemies by the crowd. Okay, that's a lot. That's already saying a whole bunch of shit. Oh, hi, Texas Chan. It is really good to see you up in the mix. It's been a minute. I mean, since you've been here anyway. Uh, we should probably talk at some point. I think I probably owe you an apology. We'll talk about that later. If you're willing. If you're willing with it. Okay. So the statement this law is actually making to me is that when you have enemies about, you put yourself, I mean, from the judgment anyway, you put yourself in a very isolated position where everyone knows where you are. You make yourself vulnerable, succumb, to succumb to attack. I got to figure this shit out. Fuck, I want a cigarette now. I was gonna say something. Be right back ish. Hurry back, Heidi. I'm actually glad to have you here live for a change. Like, if you wanna hang out. Transgression of the law. Shin Hong Ti, the first emperor of China, was the mightiest man of his day. This is, mind you, 200 years before the dawn of Christ. That's what's 221, 210 BC. A couple of centuries before Christ was historically documented. His empire was vaster and more powerful than that of Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great, the Roman emperor. He had conquered all of the kingdoms surrounding his own kingdom of Qin and unified them into one massive realm called China. But in the last years of his life, few, if anyone, saw him. The emperor lived in the most magnificent palace built to that date. In the capital of Xianyang, the palace had 270 pavilions. All of these were connected by secret underground passageways. Move about the country. Allowing the emperor to move throughout the palace without anyone seeing him. He slept in a different room every night, and anyone who inadvertently laid eyes on him was instantly beheaded. Ooh, that's rough. That's very rough. Only a handful of men knew his whereabouts, and if they revealed it to anyone, they too were put to death. Best to just not know this information. The first emperor had grown so terrified of human contact that when he had to leave the palace, he traveled incognito, disguising himself carefully. One such trip through the provinces, he suddenly died. Oh, fuck. His body was borne back to the capital in the emperor's carriage, with a cart packed with salted fish trailing behind it to cover up the smell of the rotting corpse. No one was to know of his death. He died alone, far from his wives, his family, his friends, and his courtiers, accompanied only by a minister and a handful of eunuchs. Ah, shit. This kind of be a isolationist issue. Kind of be a whole problem. You rise to the height of your power, and then you fall all the way down because you start overestimating your own weakness, I think. Like, this man did destroy all the provinces and end the feudalism of China, and then 100% just fell all the way. I mean, you get old, you get weak. There's not a whole fuckload you can do about that. Except, except you can find somebody to replace what you have lost in strength and guide them with what you have in wisdom. That is that is absolutely the way. I mean, it's not actually that. It's not actually that at all. It's pronounced China because I'm learning Spanish. And apparently, in Espanol, me llamo Darthidius y no vivo en China. I don't speak Donald Trump, though, because Donald Trump's a fag. He's just as big a piece of shit as everybody else in the controlled administration. We're not going to play this game tonight. Heidi says, thanks, Darth. That means a lot. I got to rewind the last two paragraphs at the end. Or actually, you go back over it as you do. I mean, I go back over what I has to go back over. I'm not really even in the mood to stream tonight. There's a lot of shit going down all around me. Most of the people here right now are fairly well removed from it. And I gotta say, like, if you don't know why I'm irritated right now, I bid you the best of the scenario. Like, I gotta tell you, but you're doing better than I am. Okay, I know nobody can read what this says. It says masculine with death. What this is actually supposed to say is the mask of the Red Death. And I hate how this PDF actually got translated into so much bullshit. I think it's a fonting error, but I haven't actually looked into it that much. Oh shit. We on the magical twins of the twins. I'm with it. Maddie, we can talk later. Krugget. Good to see you, dude. Oh, Bijou. Bijou the breaded. Oh my goodness. Yes, Squabobbles, I'm about to read The Mask of the Red Death. At Death Hideous, IRL first always. It makes me sad to think you feel pressure to stream when you're not into it. Take care of yourself first always. I mean, I've made an obligation to do the streams I've obligated myself to do. I promised my audience a thing. And in order to appear to them like I mean what the fuck I say, I have to show up when I say I'm going to show up. It doesn't fucking matter if I don't want to do it. I should do it. If I'm capable of doing it, I should be there. You're not always going to have your best fucking day, but you should definitely be ready to have every single day come come for your neck. Anywho, I'm gonna get into the Mask of the Red Death now because this actually this is an Edgar Allan Poe poem for those who don't know. And there are a shitload of editorial errors in this. I read through it earlier and man, it was really bad. I'm gonna try to translate it as best I can. I'm not gonna be perfect, I promise you that. Feel free to correct me. But the Mask of the Red Death. The Red Death had long devastated the country. No pestilence had ever been so fatal or so hideous. I mean, I'm speaking on behalf of Team Hideous. We don't claim this shit. We had nothing to do with it. Blood was its avatar. This says avatar. And its seal. The redness and horror of blood. There were sharp pains, and sudden dizziness, and then profuse bleeding at the pores, with dissolution, and the whole seizure, progress, and termination of the disease were the incidents of half an hour. Which means this shit literally got your ass and deaded you before you even had a chance to know that you were effed over like the Red Death. This is this is the this is the actual stream. Give me just enough fuel and watch me fucking light this shit all the way up. But anyway, the Red Death. It's lucky that society managed to make its way out of this because this really is something that could have ended what it could have plunged us into another dark ages. But the Prince of Prospero, okay, here we are, was happy and dauntless and sagacious. When his dominions were half depopulated, he summoned to his presence 1,000 hale and light-hearted friends from among the knight and dames of his court, and with these retired to the deep and with these retired to the deep seclusion of one of his castellated abbeys. Okay, so we all gonna go retreat now. Gonna hold up in the deeps. Ah, this is the truth of this is actually gonna break the universe once the universe is broken, but we'll talk about that later. We will talk about that later. This was an extensive and magnificent structure, the creation of the prince's own eccentric yet august taste. A strong and lofty wall girdled it in. Yeah. To anyone who tells you that walls don't work, this wall had gates of iron. The courtiers, having entered, brought furnaces and massy hammers and welded the bolts. They resolved to leave means neither of ingress nor egress. I'm going to translate that to y'all because I learned a little bit of the language while suffering this text the first time. That literally means no way in, no way out. Welded the fuck shut. Okay, so we're all gonna go down this road then. To the sudden impulses of despair or frenzy from within. So they were more worried about what was gonna come from inside than to come from outside, and they 100% knew if they welded the gates, they would assuage the fear of those within. The abbey was amply provisioned. With such precautions, the courtiers might bid defiance to the contagion. The external world could take care of itself. In the meantime, it was folly to grieve or to think. The prince had provided all the appliances of pleasure. There were buffoons. There were improvisatori. There were ballet dancers. There were musicians. There was beauty. There was wine. All right, you got me. You left me all the way up until this. All these and security were within. Without was the Red Death. It was toward the close of the 5th or 6th month of his seclusion, and while the pestilence raged most furiously abroad, that the Prince Prospero entertained his 1,000 friends at a masked ball of the most unusual magnificence. It was a voluptuous scene, that masquerade, and the revel that went whirlingly on. until at length there commenced the sounding of midnight upon the clock, and thus, too, it happened, perhaps, that before the last echoes of the last chime had utterly sunk into silence, there were many individuals in the crowd who had found leisure to become aware of a masked figure which had arrested the attention of no single individual before. The figure was tall and gaunt, and shrouded from head to foot in the habiliments of the grave. The mask which concealed the visage was made so nearly to resemble the countenance of a stiffened corpse that the closest scrutiny must have had difficulty in detecting the cheat. Oh shit, y'all. We are literally coming into the realm. We're literally coming to the realm of the untapped, untouchable. And yet, all this might have been endured, if not approved, by the mad revelers around. But the mummer had gone so far as to assume the type of the Red Death. His vesture was dabbled in blood, and his broad brow, with all the features of the face, was sprinkled with the scarlet horror. A throng of the revelers at once threw themselves into the black apartment, and, seizing the mummer, whose tall figure stood erect and motionless within the shadow of the ebony clock, gasped in unutterable horror at finding the grave cerements and the corpse-like mask, which they handled with so violent a rudeness, untenanted by any tangible form. Spoiler warning, y'all. That's not a mask. Melissa Jane, well, it is good to see you lurking out and about. Glad you're here to hear about the 18th law in the realm of the suck hole. This is a bad night to do this. And now, what's acknowledged the presence of the Red Death. Okay, so spoiler warning to y'all. The person they thought dressed up as the Red Death for the masquerade ball, it turns out wasn't dressed up. He was red fucking dead. He had come like a thief in the night, and one by one dropped the revelers in the blood bedewed halls of their revel, and died each in the despairing posture of his fall, and the life of the ebony clock went out with with that of the last of the gay. and the flames of the tripods expired, and darkness and decay and the Red Death held illimitable dominion over all. Okay, so Prince Prospero and a thousand retreated into their castle, only to find their midst actually invaded. And I mean, they literally welded themselves in. Last of the gay, yes. They literally welded themselves in and then found themselves amongst the very contagion that they were fleeing. And it does beg notice that they literally ran into the demise of the very thing they were running from. Because I mean, this is gonna bear itself out later. I don't want to spoil too much. Let's fucking continue, shall we? Yeah. The Red Death was was a very fatal disease, according to legend. I was not there. I cannot confirm that this actually happened. But according to lore, the Red Death was a pretty shitty disease back in the early 1600s, like early 17th century. It actually did do murder to a lot of people. But this is only what I know to be. Uh, but anyway, I don't know if y'all remember. We were fucking with the first emperor of China, and now that we're out of the italicized text, The Mask of the Red Death, Edgar Allan Poe, we got to go back to Tixin Huang. Started off as the king of Qin, a fearless warrior of unbridled ambition. Writers of the time described him as a man with a waspish nose, eyes like slits, the voice of a jackal, and the heart of a tiger or wolf. He could be merciful sometimes, but more often he swallowed men up without a scruple. Ooh. It was through trickery and violence that he conquered the provinces surrounding his own and created China. This this is the Spanish word for China, forging a single nation and culture out of many. I hate to tell you all this, but there is a very similar story that did done happen. It's called the creation of Dos Estados Unidos, the United States. I mean, I'm not even kidding you. That's literally how we got here to this day. Anywho, forging a single nation and culture out of many, he broke up the feudal system. And to keep an eye on the many members of the royal families that were scattered across the realm's various kingdoms, he moved 120,000 of them to the capital, where he housed the most important courtiers in the vast palace of Xianyang. Well, we were just here last time we did a lot, weren't we? He consolidated the many walls on the borders and built them into the Great Wall of China. We may or may not have heard of this place. He standardized the country's laws, its written language, even the size of its cartwheels. So I'm sorry to all you extra tall or extra short people who want to do cartwheels in China at this point in history. You're gonna die or something. I mean, you're gonna be punished. You can't do cartwheels if you're big or small. It's a standardized system. Uh, Grumble with me, I doubt it. As part of this process of unification, however, the first emperor outlawed the writings and teachings of Confucius, the philosopher whose ideas on the moral life had already become virtually a religion in Chinese culture. Any of you here know about Confucius? Any of you here know what his teachings entailed? I ask you this question now because if you stick with me, eventually I may cover Confucius because I do like a lot of what he said, and I do not have an issue with talking about it. So does anyone know about Confucius? I'll wait for a few seconds. Like I can't just keep. I gotta keep the show going. But I'm just curious. Like, never mind. I will go ahead and if you do know about Confucius, let me know in the chat, and we will get back to it. The philosopher who. Okay. As part of this process of unification, however, the first emperor outlawed the writings and teachings of Confucius, the philosopher's ideas on the moral life had already become virtually a religion in Chinese culture. On Ti Shi Huang's order, thousands of books relating to Confucius were burned, and anyone who quoted Confucius was to be beheaded. Book burning and historical rewriting. This sounds all too familiar with me in current year. This made many enemies for the emperor because anytime you demand history be rewritten to benefit you, you run into the problem of all the people who were just like, no, dumb shit motherfucker, I was there. That's not how that went. Let's try again. And let's not pretend that you're not a lying piece of shit. Unfortunately, those who have more power get to just lie with impunity. And this is why you don't lose wars. This is why you don't get caught up in bullshit. This is why you tend to just like, I mean, this is why you tend to violate this law specifically. This made many enemies for the emperor, and he grew constantly afraid, even paranoid. The executions mounted, which means they increased. A contemporary, the writer Han Su, noted that Jian has been victorious for 4 generations, 40 years approximately, yet has lived in constant terror and apprehension of destruction. Well, it was like this shit just doesn't fucking. It just seems like this just doesn't fucking end. As the emperor withdrew deeper and deeper into the palace to protect himself, he slowly lost control of the realm. Eunuchs and ministers enacted political policies without his approval or even his knowledge. They also plotted against him. By the end, he was emperor in name only and was so isolated that barely anyone knew he had died. He had probably been poisoned by the same scheming ministers who encouraged his isolation. That is what isolation brings. Retreat into a fortress and you lose contact with the sources of your power. Ah, shit show. Shh. Confucius' philosophical teachings regarding personal and governmental morality, correctness of social relationships, justice, kindness, sincerity, as well as an emphasis on a ruler's duty to their subject. Do, do you know why the first emperor of China banned these teachings? Because he literally went ahead to rule over them with a completely iron fist. Mommy Spice, holy shit. It's been a while since I've seen you around here, but it is good to see you here. That's two, like Texas Jen and Mommy Spice. Like let me not see all the angels here tonight. I may already have it. But it is really good to see everybody just back in and talking about some shit. Everyone is out tonight. Yeah, I mean, everybody is out tonight. Oh my God, I think we need to do a karaoke stream now. Just hold on loosely, but don't let it go. I mean, I can't do 38 special justice because I can't sing for shit. But Swab, I mean, I know where you're coming from. I also know why the stream we were both at earlier, like there were all types of there were all types of pathogenic, just so much hate and drama, like that people wouldn't even listen to simple, reasonable points of view. It it actually kind of grossed me all the way the fuck out. But I didn't expect any better considering this scenario there. Regardless, like I'm trying not to focus too much on it, even though my head's caught in that dumb shit. It's a big place. There's plenty of room for all of us. That's all I'm gonna say to you. This is what isolation brings. Retreat into a fortress and you lose contact with the sources of your power. You lose your ear for what is happening around you, as well as a sense of proportion. Instead of being safer, you cut yourself off from the kind of knowledge on which your life depends. Never enclose yourself so far from the streets that you cannot hear what is happening around you, including the plots against you. Oh shit, that's a lot to say. And this is a huge statement because if people are going to plot against you, stoners casting stones, drunks being drunk with hate. I mean, I'm trying not to go too far off the rails with the fundamental concept of this topic, Squab. I hate it because I agree with you, and I want to talk about it. Now is not the time or place. This is inappropriate for me to skew that far from the truth of what I'm saying. But the fact of the matter remains, like I see this happening with all the people around me right now. Everybody seems to be fracturing off into different little groups. Everybody seems to want to fight with each other. Like, I don't have beef with anyone here at the moment, which is funny enough because if you'd have asked me this 4 months ago, I would have said, fuck everybody here. Except for Jujubee, except for Cat Ninja, except for Mousy. Every single one of you can all suck my dick because every single one of you, and to those who are not in the immediate like group, to those who don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, disregard this. This is not aimed at you. This is not like if you were totally but about from it, but those who are here who know that everybody decided when it was time to scapegoat me, it was super cool to shit on me. And every one of you did it, including those who are talking, including those who are silent. Y'all know who you are. But you did decide to isolate and cut me out. And now I sit back and watch a significant length of time later, and I get to watch you all do it to each other, knowing damn well that if I were dumb enough to get fucking back into the middle of that, I would be cut this way and that way as well. I stand on the fringes for a fucking reason. I don't get too deep with any of y'all anymore for a fucking reason. I love it when you're here with me, and if you fuck with me, I fuck with you. However, if your bullshit and nonsense was not on my side, I recognized that real quickly and I walked away completely. And me, I was in your corner, Darth, and never shit on you. Heidi, I'm definitely not talking to you. Like I said, if you don't know I'm talking to you right now, then I'm not. I promise you I'm not. If you do know I'm talking to you right now, then you don't have to question it. You're not Heidi. You can't hide from me. But no, I mean, if you don't think I'm talking to you right now, I'm not. If you know I'm talking to you right now, fuck you, I am. 100 fucking 1,000%. Observance of the law. We gotta go back to the we gotta go circle all the way back in our minds, like we had a transgression of the law. Now we're going to go ahead and cinch in our brains on some more important shit, which is how this law actually manifests positively. Louis the 14th had the Palace of Versailles built for him and his court in the 1660s, and it was like no other royal palace in the world. As in a beehive, everything revolved around the royal person. So, like in a beehive, everything revolves around the queen bee. This is as such. He lived surrounded by the nobility who were allotted apartments nestled around his, their closeness to him dependent on their rank. Okay. The king's bedroom occupied the literal, and I mean this in literal sense, I hope, because we have redefined that word, center of the palace and was the focus of everyone's attention. Every morning, the king was greeted in this room by a ritual known as the lever. Every morning? Shit, can I just not, like, wake up and be greeted by the ritual of the I need to take a shit? Heidi, I am sorry. I have had a very long week. It is only Wednesday. And I am not gonna. I'm not gonna collapse this stream to get into this nonsense. I've got a purpose here. I don't take it personally. I hope you don't either. We're literally in the lever room of the Emperor Louis the 14th at 8 a.m. The king's first valet, who slept at the foot of the royal bed. Okay, I hate to say this. This is just me pointing out fundamental problematic scenarios at this point. Because the first time I read this, I was like, wait, what? The king's first valet, who slept at the foot of the royal bed, like a dog, mind you, would awaken his majesty. That should be a dog that does that, or a rooster, or something. The fact that it's probably a eunuch is probably not good. Then pages would open the door and admit those who had a function in the lever. The order of their entry was precise. First came the king's illegitimate sons and his grandchildren, so basically the bastards. You gotta let the bastards in first for some fucking reason. Then the princes and princesses of the blood, which means his legitimate kids, and then his physicians and certainly his doctors. There followed the grand officers of the wardrobe, literally people to dress him, and the king's official reader, and those in charge of entertaining the king. Next would arrive various government officials in ascending order of rank. So, bottom first. Last but not least came those attending the lever by special invitation. So, this is, mind you, it says right here, every morning the king was greeted in this room by a ritual. Like, this literally happens every single fucking day. Get the fuck out of here with that. By the end of the ceremony, the room would be packed with well over 100 royal attendants and visitors. Well, I mean, I'm a very extroverted, outgoing person. Even I think this daily ritual is excessively a lot. Oh shit, you have a stream tonight, don't you? Well, that sucks because I'm probably not going to be done with this before that starts. The day was organized so that all the palace's energy was directed at and passed through the king. Louis was constantly attended by courtiers and officials, all asking for his advice and judgment. To all their questions, he usually replied, I shall see. Well, that's a non answer as fuck. As Saint Simon noted, if he turned to someone, asked him a question, made an insignificant remark, the eyes of all present were turned on this person. It was a distinction that was talked of and increased prestige. There was no possibility of privacy in the palace, not even for the king. Every room communicated with another, and every hallway led to larger rooms where groups of nobles gathered constantly. Everyone's actions were interdependent, and nothing and no one passed unnoticed. The king not only saw to it that all the high nobility was present at his court, wrote Saint Simon, he demanded the same of the minor nobility. At his lever and kosher, at his meals, in his gardens of Versailles, he always looked about him, noticing everything. He was offended if the most distinguished nobles did not live permanently at court, and those who showed themselves never, or hardly ever, incurred his full displeasure. If one of these desired something, the king would say proudly, I do not know him. And the judgment was irrevocable. I hate to tell you this, y'all, because Jesus did the same shit with a bunch of the fakers who didn't know him. So this king, he just stole this shit from Jesus. Hold on, I think I'm missing something in my chat. Is nobody doing Thanksgiving this year? Are we doing a Thanksgiving somewhere else? I would like to know. I'm just kidding. I don't have any friends. Let's fucking continue. I gotta say my piece on the rest of this bullshit, and then get the fuck out of here. Interpretation. Louis XIV came to power at the end of a terrible civil war. The Fronde, a principal instigator of the war, had been the nobility, which deeply resented the growing power of the throne and yearned for the days of feudalism. So basically, what they were saying is, we hate that we don't have all the power anymore, and we wish we could go back to that. When the lords ruled their own fiefdoms and the king had little authority over them, the nobles had lost the Civil War, but they remained a fractious, resentful lot. I mean, unfortunately, in the case of power, this is where you start getting into talking into the realms of genocide. Like, you get to start talking way too fucking wild. And that's what shit gets. That's what shit gets. I mean, fuck this. I'm gonna start doing the rest of these on Rumble, so I can just say what the fuck I mean. The construction of Versailles. If somebody could please put my Rumble in, because I mean, I might just like halfway through switch this up and go exclusive Rumble. Like, I really don't. I hate being on YouTube. I really do. It's a problem for me. Oh shit, sandwich. How did that happen? Okay, well, let's draw back in. Fuck's sake. My bad, y'all. I don't realize how the fuck I got this far down into the mix. Mm-hmm. Do this. The odds of me sticking around on fucking YouTube in the current mood I'm in right now, very low. I might do all the rest of these on Rumble. I do still owe y'all on YouTube one more stream on Friday. I might change the schedule again. The construction of Versailles, then, was far more than the decadent whim of a luxury loving king. It served a crucial function. The king could keep an eye and an ear on everyone and everything around him. The once proud nobility was reduced to squabbling over the right to help the king put on his robes in the morning. There was no possibility here of privacy, no possibility of isolation. Okay, so some people probably need to hear this now. In this period of time, that which you said under cover of darkness, or what you thought was under cover of darkness, shall be shown in the light. So keep your words sweet, lest you have to eat them later. Louis XIV very early grasped the truth that for a king to isolate himself is gravely dangerous. In his absence, conspiracies will spring up like mushrooms after rain. Animosities will crystallize into factions, and will and rebellion will break out before he has the time to react. To combat this, sociability and openness must not only be encouraged, they must be formally organized and channeled. In other words, they must be officially enforced. Because if you don't force somebody to actually associate with somebody they don't want to associate with, guess what? They fucking won't. I know a whole shitload of people right here tonight that I wouldn't normally associate with unless I had to. It is what it is. Don't imagine too many things. These conditions at Versailles lasted for Louis's entire reign. Some 50 years of relative peace and tranquility. Through it all, not a pin dropped without Louis hearing it. Okay, we're back to the italicized words, y'all. Solitude is dangerous to reason without being favorable to virtue. Remember that the solitary mortal is certainly luxurious, probably superstitious, and possibly mad. Dr. Samuel Johnson. Isolation is not the way to go. Fracturization is not the way to go. Like, I don't have to claim a dog in the fight that is currently ongoing with all the people around me. I see you all out here. I understand why all of you want to fight. I think you're all stupid. And if you're not fighting out here currently and you're like, what the fuck is he talking about? I'm not talking to you. Not at all. But to those who know I am talking to them, what the fuck are you even doing? Having been in the middle of all this shit for a long enough time. Like, do do you not have anything better to do? I guess I don't either because I'm addressing it during my stream right now. Let's get back to it. Keys of power. Machiavelli makes the argument that in a strictly military sense, a fortress is invariably a mistake. And I fuck with Machiavelli. So it behooves us to listen to this right now, at least from my point of view as the stream host. I want to point this out specifically. It becomes a symbol of power's isolation and is an easy target for its builder's enemies. So, fortressing yourself off. Yeah, I tried thinking to save a village is a worthy thing too, Swab, but unfortunately, a time comes when we must realize what is what. Designed to defend you, fortresses actually cut you off from help and cut into your flexibility. They may appear impregnable, but once you retire to one, everyone knows where you are. And a siege does not have to succeed to turn your fortress into a prison. And this I definitely wanted to touch on because this is where isolation becomes far too strong of a problem, is when you turn your fortress into a prison because you are besieged on all sides. So you just keep running until your problems surround you. And then even though your problems can't get you, you can't get away either. So you're stuck. You're stuck on foot. That's inherently hugely problematic. Because humans are social creatures by nature, power depends on social interaction and circulation. To make yourself powerful, you must place yourself at the center of things, as Louis XIV did at Versailles. Now, I didn't speak too in depth about Louis XIV, but me personally, and this is not speaking to anyone else's power, this is just my personal assessment and adaptation, that it's literally ridiculous to be that surrounded by people because you don't have any time to assess anything that's going on. So while I will say that this is an extreme example, and I mean, kudos to Louis XIV for being able to process all the bullshit that was going on in his court and kingdom at the time. Like, I don't think I could ever truly have a grasp on what was going on around me if I didn't have a moment or two to myself to just get the fuck away from all the noise and think in my own head. But apparently, like, that's problematic. I think being overexposed is also problematic. I think there is a balance to be found between the two, and I think at some point in time we may find it. All activity should revolve around you, and you should be aware of everything happening on the street. Yeah, I agree. Or you should at least have people that are aware enough that if anything is really truly important, they should be able to tap you on the shoulder and let you know. And of anyone who might be hatching plots against you. Well, there you go. The danger for most people comes when they feel threatened. Yeah. In such times, they tend to retreat and close ranks to find security in a kind of fortress. And this is what I would urge all the people who are in that group I mentioned earlier to take note of. Do not close ranks. Do not diminish your circles. Understand that in a struggle for power, everyone is always plotting against you. And this goes to everyone on all sides. In doing so, however, they come to rely for information on a smaller and smaller circle. So the smaller your circle, the less information you're going to get and lose perspective on the events around them. So when you cut off voices that dissent with you, that will tell you the truth even though you don't like it, you get more and more isolated. You lose maneuverability and become easy targets, and your isolation makes you paranoid. As in warfare and most games of strategy, isolation often precedes defeat and death. The more defensive you get, the more and more people are going to shit all over you. Darth thinking in my head is bound to settle Darth into a state of calm and acceptance. I'm already actually in a state of calm and acceptance, Swab. I just don't realize it yet. I've got a lot. I've got a lot of a ways to go to get there, but I will be there. In moments of uncertainty and danger, you need to fight this desire and to turn inward. Instead, make yourself more accessible. Seek out old allies and make new ones. Force yourself into more and more different circles. This has been the trick of powerful people for centuries. And we are going to touch a bit on like how the powerful have reached these points. The Roman statesman Cicero was born into the lower nobility and had little chance of power unless he managed to make a place for himself among the aristocrats who controlled the city. He succeeded brilliantly, identifying everyone with influence and figuring out how they were connected to one another. He mingled everywhere. He knew everyone and had such a vast network of connections that an enemy here could easily be counterbalanced by an ally there. The French statesman Talleyrand, who we have in this series discussed at significant length, played the game the same way. Although he came from one of the oldest aristocratic families in France, he made a point of always staying in touch with what was happening in the streets of Paris. And that is big key. Like, make sure you balance your like perception of your own power with the reality of it. So even if you're on the top of the game, you were born into one of the biggest families, you just keep your ears to the streets, allowing him to foresee trends and troubles. He even got a certain pleasure out of mingling with shady criminal types. Oh, that's me. Who supplied him with valuable information, such as thinking about things the way you wouldn't think about them because we not like you. Every time there was a crisis, a transition of power, the end of the Directory, the fall of Napoleon, the abdication of Louis XVIII, he was able to survive and even thrive because he never closed himself up in a small circle, but always forged connections with the New Order. This law pertains to kings and queens and to those of the highest power. So, for all of y'all that don't have power, I'm sorry. I hate to say this. Yeah, Great Liquor, I'm actually with you. Like, this is why, like, if you see my description for this video, it's like, oh shit, I'm really glad I didn't manage to make it here Monday night because this actually does play way better tonight. And maybe Jesus has a reason for me to be here tonight and not 2 days ago. Such things may bear repeating as we go on through the night. But yeah, I will repeat. This law pertains to kings and queens and to those of the highest power. The moment you lose contact with your people, seeking security in isolation, rebellion is brewing. Never imagine yourself so elevated that you can afford to cut yourself off from even the lowest echelons. By, by retreating to a fortress, you make yourself an easy target for your plotting subjects, who view your isolation as an insult and a reason for rebellion. Since humans are such social creatures, it follows that the social arts that make us pleasant to be around can be practiced only by constant exposure and circulation. The more you are in contact with others, the more graceful and at ease you become. Isolation, on the other hand, engenders an awkwardness in your gestures and leads to further isolation as people start avoiding you. And I mean, do we really, really want to get into like how this works? Do I even need to give you all an explanation how being around somebody who is really uncomfortable and unpleasant and doesn't know how to be around other people makes other people not want to be around. I feel like I do a good job of balancing, like trying to be a very pleasant and personable person to the people who I see as being worth the time. And if you're a person who I don't see as worth the time, I have very, very little trouble of telling you, nah, get the fuck out. And I don't think many people are discerning enough to realize, like, what people are worth their time until they're too late. Nobody is actually perfect in this regard. Not me nor anyone else. I fuck up all the fucking time when it comes to like having people around me that aren't worth my aren't worth my effort. It is what it is. Anyway, back to it. In 1545, Duke Cosimo de' Medici decided to ensure the immortality of his name. He would commission frescoes for the main chapel of the Church of San Lorenzo in Florence. Well, I hate to tell this to you, Duke Cosimo. Uh, it's 2023. I've never heard of your name, and I've not heard of the Church of San Lorenzo in Florence before today. I might be an uncultured idiot for that. He had many great painters to choose from, and in the end he picked Jacopo da Pontormo. Getting on in years, Pontormo wanted to make these frescoes his chef d'oeuvre and legacy. Okay, so we got two people seeking legacies now and immortality. His first decision was to close the chapel off with walls, partitions, and blinds. Okay, so we're already like falling away from the concept of the law here. He wanted no one to witness the creation of his masterpiece or to steal his ideas. He would outdo Michelangelo himself. This is why I've never heard of you, right? This like we're already like foreshadowing why I've never heard of this motherfucker or what he did. When some young men broke into the chapel out of curiosity, Jacopo sealed it off even further. Pontormo filled the chapel ceilings with biblical scenes: the creation, Adam and Eve, Noah's Ark, on and on. At the top of the middle wall, he painted Christ in his majesty, raising the dead on Judgment Day. The artist worked on the chapel for 11 years, rarely leaving it, since he had developed a phobia for human contact and was afraid his ideas would be stolen. Okay, so you done delved deep into the realm of paranoia. You done lost yourself in there, and now we've gotten extremely problematic with the nature of this. How the fuck did we get here? Pontormo died before completing the frescoes. and none of them has survived. This is why we never heard of this. But the great Renaissance writer Vasari, a friend of Pontormo's, who saw the frescoes shortly after the artist's death, left a description of what they looked like. There was a total lack of proportion. Scenes bumped against scenes, figures in one story being juxtaposed with those in another in maddening numbers. So basically, what I think he's trying to say here is this motherfucker literally fucked everything up by basically just like completely misconstruing all the reality of what's going on here. Pontormo became obsessed with detail, but had lost any sense of the overall composition. Vasari left off his description of the frescoes by writing that if he continued, I think I would go mad and become entangled in this painting, just as I believe that in the 11 years of time Jacopo spent on it, he entangled himself and anyone else who saw it. Instead of crowning Pontormo's career, the work became his undoing. Okay, so he's just he was just lost his done shit. 100%, 1,000%, 1,000,000,000%. These frescoes were visual equivalents of the effects of isolation on the human mind. Ah, a loss of proportion, an obsession with detail, combined with an inability to see the larger picture, a kind of extravagant ugliness that no longer communicates. I mean, you've lost all touch with what's going on here. Step back, step back, step back. This is my advice as Darth Hideous to anyone who finds themselves in this position. Please step back. You are too close to everything. Clearly, isolation is as deadly for the creative arts as for the social arts. Shakespeare is the most famous writer in history because, as a dramatist for the popular stage, he opened himself up to the masses, making his work accessible to people no matter what their education and taste. Artists who hold themselves up in their fortress lose a sense of proportion, their work communicating only to their small circle. I have been guilty of this and may still yet lay guilty of it because I do work like this of a very niche artistic nature. Not everybody is going to relate with what I'm talking about here tonight. In fact, the vast majority of everybody is not going to relate with what we're talking about here tonight. This is me doing isolation work because I don't speak on what is culturally popular. I violate this law in extent because I want to reach an audience of people who listen, who hear, who have a bit of thought about the subject. If this is not for you, I get it. I wouldn't expect anyone to stick around with this. If this is for you, and you could throw me a like and maybe even a share on the stream, a content creator might appreciate it. Such art remains cornered and powerless, so it affects nobody outside of your little group. Finally, since power is a human creation, it is inevitably increased by contact with other people. Instead of falling into the fortress mentality, view the world in the following manner. It is like a vast Versailles, with every room communicating with another. You need to be permeable, able to float in and out of different circles and mix with different types. And this is something I've gotten into arguments with a couple of people who are really super close to me. Like, how do you fuck with this dude and that dude? And I'm like, well, first of all, it takes all kinds. Like, I can't just be amongst the righteous all the time. I mean, I'm a wicked sinner. These are my people. The shitheads, the trash, the trash folk, the garbage of society. I mean, if I'm gonna go ahead and expand further on my inability to wall myself off in a fortress, it's because as a giant piece of shit, the Lord actually called me to go ahead and be a witness to other giant pieces of shit. You're not alone. If people ask me why I mean, I go where I have to be, where I feel like I am needed. If I don't feel like I'm needed or wanted in a place, it's pretty easy to see myself out. But if I feel like I need to be somewhere, it's really fucking hard to get rid of me. Hate to tell you, but if you want to know why I'm in where I am, this is it. I mean, I'm gonna answer you this. Why do I feel loved? I mean, you might have missed a bunch of things, but I don't know the context of that question. You might feel lost because you don't know where you're supposed to be, though. That kind of mobility and social contact will protect you from plotters who will be unable to keep secrets from you and from your enemies, who will be unable to isolate you from your allies. Always on the move, you mix and mingle in the rooms of the palace, never sitting or settling in one place. No hunter can fix aim on such a swift moving creature. Okay, I'm with that. Always be mobile, never be able to be pinned down. Image, the fortress, high upon the hill. The citadel becomes a symbol that is hateful in power and authority. The citizens of the town betray you to the first enemy that comes. Cut off from communication and intelligence, the citadel falls with ease. Authority. A good and wise prince, desirous of maintaining that character and to avoid giving the opportunity to his sons to become oppressive, will never build fortresses so that they may place their reliance upon the goodwill of their subjects and not upon the strength of citadels. Machiavelli. I mean, it's a well stated statement. It is pretty lively in its regard. I mean, I'm super glad to have you here too. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Uh, I'm kind of missing a bunch of shit in chat because I didn't expect my chat to get this lively tonight. I expected most people to be doing their Thanksgiving things tonight. I didn't expect all of you to show out. I love y'all. I thank you all for being here. If you want to show me some love, all I need from you, and this is no joke, share this out with someone who might could benefit from it. Uh, share it out with someone who might could enjoy it. I don't need your finances. I don't need your financial support. Just share this with your friends. If you like it. If you don't. I'm cool with that too. What's a citadel, Darth Sidious? I knew it as a bike lot from decades ago. A citadel is a fortress, Heidi. It is actually like the deeper and bigger the walls on the fortress, the more of a citadel it becomes. It's basically a pinnacle of isolation. As 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 one of the few people, keep doing what you're doing. As one of the few people who are going to keep telling you the truth, keep doing what you're doing. Make Thanksgiving dinner. Spend the day, spend the week, spend the month, spend your time with the people who are actually important to you. Because if you do not do this, and if you isolate yourself, you may come to a point. You may. I hope you do not, but you may come to a point where the people who are closest to you are no longer close to you because you have isolated yourself too far away. That is the whole fucking point of this law. Reversal. It is hardly ever right and propitious to choose isolation without keeping an ear on what is happening in the streets. You will be unable to protect yourself. About the only thing that constant human contact cannot facilitate is thought. The weight of society's pressure to conform and the lack of distance from other people can make it impossible to clearly to think clearly about what is going on around you. And this is my statement from earlier. This is what I really wanted to get at. And that is too much interaction with people gives you no time to process any of the interactions with people. You would do better not to be constantly in the eyes and ire of other folks. Just came into Lake and say hi. I've only been up since early o'clock. One of the few times listened to. I mean, appreciate that. As a temporary recourse, then isolation can help you gain perspective. You can actually block out all these voices and figure shit out for yourself. Many a serious thinker has been produced in prisons where we have nothing to do but think. I don't know if anyone in my chat has ever been incarcerated. I know I have. I really do hope you haven't. However, having been there, I do know you've got nothing but time to think. And great thinkers do get produced in prison. For that very reason, I can attest to this. Machiavelli could write The Prince only once he found himself in exile and isolated on a farm far from the political intrigues of Florence. Now, had Machiavelli actually existed in current climate, Machiavelli would have been executed. He never would have had a chance to be exiled because communication today is far too wide and he's far too dangerous. If they couldn't Alex Jones him, they would Jeffrey Epstein him or Tupac him or whatever because he becomes too dangerous of an element to ever fucking try to challenge. The danger is, however, that this kind of isolation will sire all kinds of strange and perverted ideas. You may gain perspective on the larger picture, but you lose a sense of your own smallness and limitations. Also, the more isolated you are, the harder it is to break out of your isolation when you choose to. It sinks you deep into its quicksand without your noticing. If you need time to think, then choose isolation only as a last resort and only in small doses. Be careful to keep your way back into society open. And this, the thing that I would love to leave you with. And I know at least one person still present in my chat, and probably at least two can attest to this. Like, there comes a day where everybody turns their guns on you. You retreat from all of them because, well, you cannot fight the mob. You just wait for the mob to figure out the truth, and then in that time, you let them disperse themselves and you come back when you're no longer in danger. Okay, y'all. I hate to say this, like, I did not expect this chapter to go nearly as long as it did. I didn't even want to do this, like, from the very beginning of this fucking stream. But I thank every single one of you who's actually held it down with me. Thank you, Darth Hideous. I love how much history and info you know. I love you, Darth. You're an incredibly unique and strong, truly amazing. Don't overblow my asshole, like please. I thank you, Heidi, for your appreciation, but I'm not special. The information and knowledge I have is not unique. It's available to everybody. Like I'm literally just living on this rock the same way everybody else is. But because of that fact, I have to interact with all different types of people. And knowing the things I know, though my information not be unique, does give me a fair advantage amongst other folks. And with that being said, I want to leave y'all with this one bit of advice. The more you close yourself off from the people who care about you, the more you close yourself off from the people you care about, And I mean this not in a kings and queens sense. I mean this in an actual everyday sense. You will suffer from the loss of them. They will suffer from the loss of you too. It will be on you to decipher whether or not that loss is worth it to you. This is why all throughout all the bullshit I've been through with all the people I know, I do absolutely try my hardest never to ever cut off communications with anyone. Even if I have nothing on the surface to gain from you because I consider you an enemy of mine or an opposition of mine, I'm still going to try to listen to you. And this is going to go out to the people who have opposed me. I don't block you. I don't mute you because if at any point in time you try to come at me, I want to be aware of it. And this is why I keep a bunch of people around me so that they can be aware of what's going around too, so that I can still hear even when it's a problem. With this said, I'm going to get out of my powerful mind state. I'm going to wish every single person here who's still stuck around with me a happy Thanksgiving. I love you all. I hope you all get a chance to declare your thanks. I am going to be back tomorrow, not tomorrow, Friday morning at noon for the 19th Law of Power. And though I did miss you all on Monday because I did fall apart a bit in myself, I take responsibility for that. I would like to do after Friday's stream, I'd like to do a little moment where I can have people on. I would like to go on Rumble and then have everybody like give thanks and talk about it. But we'll see what happens. Like I don't expect too much. Lincoln was a tyrant. Woodrow Wilson was the worst president in United States history, and much love to every single one of you. Have a wonderful holiday. I will catch as many of you back here at noon p.m. on Friday as I can. Peace, love, and weed, y'all.